Sexual desire wasn't designed to be controlled. It was built for survival. Tens of thousands of years ago, the human brain evolved under pressure to pass on genes. Those who had a strong sex drive reproduced. Those who didn't. The reward system in your brain reinforced this. When you sought food, shelter, or sex, your brain released dopamine. That chemical wasn't meant to make you feel good. It was designed to make you keep going, to keep chasing. Back then, mating was scarce. Risk was high. You had to fight for attention, compete, survive. In that world, the dopamine system made sense. It served a purpose. But that's not the world we live in anymore. Today, the same brain is exposed to a completely different environment. Porn, dating apps, instant messaging, all offering unlimited access to stimuli the brain still interprets as rare. But it's not rare anymore. It's everywhere. It's cheap. And it's easy. This is the trap. When a man opens a browser and clicks on a video, the brain can't tell the difference between that screen and real-life sexual opportunity. It floods the system with dopamine, just like it would if you were securing a mate in nature. But the screen doesn't give anything back. No risk, no reward, just the illusion of progress. And that illusion is dangerous. The more you stimulate this system, the more it adapts. Your brain becomes desensitized. It now needs more stimulation to feel the same reward. Longer videos, new categories, novelty. You build tolerance. But the goalpost keeps moving. This is how addiction starts. Not just chemical, but behavioral. But it doesn't end with porn. The same system reacts to dating apps. Every swipe, every match, every message triggers a reward. Not because anything valuable happened, but because the system is tricked. It thinks you've achieved something you haven't. This reward loop makes focus harder. Decision-making becomes weaker. Motivation drops. You can't think clearly because your brain has been hijacked by inputs that feel important but offer nothing. And the worst part, most people don't even notice. They think it's normal. They think it's just stress or boredom. But they're inside a loop, a cycle of stimulus, reward, and withdrawal. There's a name for this. It's called the pleasure paradox. The idea is simple. The more you chase pleasure, the less control you have. The more you give in to impulse, the stronger the impulse becomes, until eventually the desire begins to lead and you begin to follow. You don't need discipline to enter the cycle. You just need access. And almost everyone has access. Some try to break free, but relapse because they haven't understood what they're fighting. This isn't about willpower, it's biology. The game is rigged, not by accident, but by design. And if you don't know how it works, you're not playing the game. You're being played. What used to be a tool for survival has now become a weakness. The brain is still wired for scarcity, but it's drowning in abundance. And that abundance doesn't empower. It weakens. Distraction becomes normal. Attention becomes fragmented. Sexual energy, one of the most powerful forces in the human mind, gets wasted on pixels, swipes, and cheap dopamine. And the price is focus, clarity, drive, creativity. What's left is a generation chasing comfort, but feeling exhausted, tired from overstimulation, frustrated by lack of progress, always busy, never moving. It's not a lack of intelligence or effort, it's misdirection, and it starts in the brain. Because if you don't control the system controls you. Sun Tzu wrote that if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. This wasn't just a message about war, it was a system for control, a way to win without force, a method that still applies today, just not in the way most people expect. The most dangerous enemy isn't out there, it's internal, invisible. It doesn't wear a uniform or carry a weapon. It hides in routine. It operates quietly without warning. It lives in distraction, in impulse, in habit. For most people, that enemy is sexual desire. It shows up as a need, but it acts like a command. It pushes thought to the side and replaces it with instinct. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for the right moment. It demands action. And unless you recognize it for what it is, it wins. In warfare, generals didn't just plan attacks. They controlled their own forces. They withheld movement. They waited. They watched. If they moved too early, they lost ground. If they struck too late, they missed opportunity. Timing was everything. The same applies here. Sexual energy is powerful. It can build nations or destroy focus. It can push someone to greatness or keep them stuck. The question is never whether it exists. The question is what you do with it. Sun Tzu would say that the battlefield is always shifting. That you win not by fighting harder, but by seeing clearly. You don't attack when you feel like it. You attack when the time is right. You don't give the enemy what it wants. You let it make the first mistake. Desire wants you to act now. It wants speed. It wants reaction. It doesn't want thought. The longer you wait, the weaker it becomes. The more you observe, the more predictable it gets. In ancient times, leaders understood this, not just in war, but in life. Commanders avoided pleasure before battle. They didn't indulge in comfort. They didn't cloud their minds. They preserved energy. Not because they lacked temptation, but because they needed to think clearly. Clarity gave them advantage. Restraint gave them control. This wasn't limited to armies. Monks did the same. They rejected excess, not to punish themselves, but to train the mind, to sharpen attention, to keep their thoughts in check. They didn't see desire as evil, they saw it as noise, and they needed silence. They knew that the more you chase, the more you lose sight of direction. That discipline isn't about saying no once, it's about staying committed when the urge returns again and again, and it always does. That's why control is difficult, because the threat isn't a single choice, it's repetition, it's habit, it's what you allow to become normal. Give in once, and the path is easier to repeat. Hold back, and the mind strengthens. Sun Tzu never said to destroy the enemy. He said to understand it, to study it, to predict it. Once you understand your own desire, its patterns, its timing, its triggers, you begin to control it. You learn how it moves. You learn what it fears. It fears delay, it fears observation, it fears silence. In the modern world, restraint isn't just hard, it's discouraged. The system around you is designed for reaction. Ads, feeds, apps, all pulling attention, each one a small invitation to give in. The more you accept, the less you decide. The point of control isn't to become robotic. It's to become intentional, it's to shift from reacting to choosing. And the moment you choose, you've already gained ground. People think freedom means doing what you want, but often freedom means having the option and not needing to act. Real strength is quiet, it's unseen. It shows itself only when needed, like a general holding back an army until the perfect moment. That's how restraint works. It's easy to give in, it takes nothing. But to hold back, to wait, to observe, that creates leverage. That builds force. That gives you the ability to act when it matters. Control isn't about others. It's about yourself. If you know the enemy, and you know yourself, you will not be defeated. But if you don't know who you're fighting, every impulse becomes a command, and most people obey without question. The Stoics never said to remove desire. They said to control it, to understand it, to keep it in check. Because once an impulse takes over, reason leaves. And for the Stoics, reason was everything. Epictetus taught that people are not disturbed by events, but by how they interpret them. He didn't see urges as problems, he saw how people reacted to them as the real problem. If the urge controls your actions, you've already lost control of your mind. That was the measure. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor and philosopher, wrote to himself daily. Reminders, instructions, warnings. He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Real strength is self-control." He wasn't writing to sound wise. He was writing because he knew the threat wasn't external. It was internal. The distractions, the habits, the wants. They were always present. They couldn't be erased, but they could be redirected. This is what the Stoics understood. That energy isn't good or bad. It's neutral. What matters is where it goes, and few forces carry more energy than sexual desire. It's the same drive that builds families, nations, civilizations. It's also the same drive that pulls attention away, wastes time, drains focus. The difference is where it's directed. The Stoics knew that pleasure wasn't evil, but chasing it without control weakened the mind. It made people reactive. It reduced clarity. It clouded judgment. And once judgment is lost, discipline follows. A person who cannot delay gratification cannot lead themselves. They follow impulse. They follow the moment. Stoicism called for control, not because it's easy, but because it's rare. The modern world makes this harder. Apps, media, entertainment, all designed to trigger impulse. Everything is fast. Everything is accessible. Everything is immediate. The Stoics didn't deal with screens, but they dealt with the same human mind. And they knew the pattern. Desire pulls attention. Attention fuels behavior. Behavior creates habit. And habits shape life. What the Stoics taught wasn't suppression. It wasn't about pretending the urge doesn't exist. It was about transmutation. Not blocking the flame, but redirecting it. Transmutation is the idea that sexual energy can be used for something else, built into something higher. Creativity, focus, drive, mental strength, it's not new. Philosophers, artists, inventors, many of them chose to redirect energy rather than waste it. They understood that the mind only has so much space, and what you feed grows. You don't ignore the urge, you work with it, you notice it, you pause, then you move it somewhere useful. That's the difference between reaction and discipline. When someone gives in, they feel temporary relief, but the cycle doesn't end. It starts again. Each time they obey the urge, the pathway strengthens. The brain learns want equals reward, and that loop becomes harder to break. The Stoics saw this coming. They knew that self-control is like a muscle. It's built slowly. Repetition matters. Consistency matters. The more you delay impulse, the more power you gain. Not just over desire, but over life. Because if you can't control yourself, nothing else stays controlled. Focus declines. Time gets lost. Ambition fades. And people wonder why they feel stuck. They chase clarity, but they feed chaos. That's why redirection is key. Energy needs motion. If you don't give it a purpose, it finds its own, usually in the form of distraction. But if you give it structure, a project, a goal, a routine, it strengthens you instead of draining you. This isn't about shame. It's about logic. The Stoics weren't trying to avoid life. They were trying to master it. They wanted to make choices from reason, not reaction. And they believed that every urge resisted added to the strength of the mind. That strength is rare, because it's hard. But every time you say no to an impulse, you're not just resisting, you're converting. You're taking the flame and using it to build something, instead of letting it burn through attention, time, and focus. The urge doesn't need to be removed, it needs to be trained. And when it's trained, it becomes fuel. Schopenhauer believed that life wasn't guided by reason, but by something deeper. He called it the will, not willpower, not conscious thought, but a blind, irrational drive beneath everything. It pushes every living thing to survive, to reproduce, to want. He said this force is endless. It doesn't care about happiness, it only wants to continue. That's why the moment one desire is satisfied, another one shows up. Food, money, power, status. It never stops. But nothing reveals this will more than sex. He called the sexual instinct the strongest expression of the will to live. To him, it wasn't about connection or romance. It was nature's tool, a strategy used to keep life going, even at the cost of the individual. People think they fall in love. They think they're making choices. But Schopenhauer said none of it is real choice. The will is choosing. The attraction, the chemistry, the obsession, all of it is biology manipulating the mind. When people chase love, they think they're acting freely. But he argued they're just following commands they don't understand. And those commands come with suffering. The will doesn't reward peace, it rewards motion. It rewards chasing. It makes people feel like they're missing something, so they keep running after it. And when they get it, the feeling fades. So the cycle restarts. That's what makes it so hard to escape. Pleasure promises relief, but relief is short, and once it fades, the will pushes again. That pressure builds frustration, boredom, emptiness, and so long as someone obeys it, they stay trapped. Even happiness, he said, isn't real. It's just the brief absence of pain. As soon as one discomfort disappears, another one appears, and the will continues, unaffected. Sexual desire is one of the most powerful tools the will uses. It overrides logic. It shapes decision-making. It changes priorities. People take risks. They abandon long-term thinking. They get pulled into situations that damage their life, just to satisfy something temporary. And then they do it again. To Schopenhauer, this wasn't a bug in the system. This was the system. Life is suffering, he said, because desire never ends. And the more someone wants, the more they suffer. The solution he offered wasn't pleasure, it was detachment, not more satisfaction, but less involvement. He believed the only way to be free was to reject the will, to stop obeying it, to stop feeding it. He wasn't talking about giving up on life, but about no longer letting desire dictate it. To him, asceticism, the choice to avoid indulgence, was a form of rebellion. It wasn't weakness, it was strength, a way to stop being used by impulses that don't serve you. He pointed to monks and sages, people who removed themselves from the cycle of craving. They didn't do it out of hate for life. They did it to escape the trap. Because once the will loses power over you, suffering starts to fade. He didn't believe this could be done through force. It required understanding, a realization that what feels like joy is often just a break between discomforts. And that comfort, if chased, creates new problems. To reject the will means to see through the illusion, to recognize that the reward is temporary, but the cost is long-term. Most people don't see this. They chase feelings. They let attraction dictate choices. They let desire shape their goals. But in doing that, they become servants to something they don't control. Schopenhauer wasn't optimistic. He didn't offer a utopia. He offered awareness, a clear view of how people get trapped by their own instincts. He believed that once you stop chasing, you begin to see. When the noise of desire fades, space opens up for something else. Stillness, focus, freedom. Because freedom isn't getting what you want. It's no longer needing it. And in a world built to feed the will, the rarest power is the ability to ignore it. Nietzsche didn't believe in denial for its own sake. He believed in control through strength. He saw suppression as weakness. Real power to him came from transformation, from taking the raw parts of human nature, instincts, urges, chaos, and turning them into something higher. He broke from Schopenhauer. Where Schopenhauer said, reject desire, Nietzsche said, reshape it. Don't run from it, use it, redirect it. Not because it's good, but because it's real. He called this the will to power. Not power over others, but power over self. The ability to choose direction instead of being dragged by habit. This will was creative. It built values, broke limits, made meaning. And in Nietzsche's view, the people who succeeded weren't the ones who avoided desire. They were the ones who used it, not to chase pleasure, but to create something from it. Sexual energy was no exception. It wasn't something to fear. It was fuel. Misused, it led to distraction, addiction, weakness. But mastered, it became force. And that force could become action, thought, vision, even art. He introduced the idea of sublimation. It means changing the direction of an impulse, not blocking it but channeling it into something else. Desire becomes poetry, instinct becomes philosophy, urge becomes invention. It's not about pretending the energy isn't there, it's about choosing where it goes. He believed that most people live by default. They follow instinct, they copy behavior, they wait for direction, they avoid pain and chase comfort. That was what he called the herd, the mass of people who never question their patterns. But the creator, the higher type, doesn't obey the herd. He doesn't obey impulse either. He obeys himself. That's why Nietzsche said, He who cannot obey himself will be commanded. If you don't master your own drives, someone else will. Society, systems, trends, they'll all use your instincts against you. And you won't notice, because it'll feel normal. True independence comes from discipline, not the kind forced by rules, the kind that comes from within, where control is chosen, not imposed, where limitation becomes direction, where restraint leads to power, not repression. Nietzsche didn't promote moral rules. He attacked them, but not because he wanted chaos. He wanted people to build their own ethics, not borrow them. And to do that, they had to understand their own nature. He saw discipline not as a cage, but as a tool. You shape yourself through control. You break what's weak, you keep what's useful, you sharpen what's raw. You take energy, even sexual energy, and convert it into something that serves you. The opposite of this is indulgence, letting instinct lead, following the easiest path. That to Nietzsche was decline, because it weakened the will. Every urge given into without control made a person more dependent, more passive, less able to shape their world. So instead of escape, he taught mastery. The artist doesn't run from emotion, he turns it into work. The philosopher doesn't avoid conflict, he thinks through it. The disciplined man doesn't remove desire, he elevates it, and the process is never finished. Nietzsche didn't believe in perfection, he believed in becoming, in motion, in pushing forward. This constant transformation was the point. To turn yourself into someone who doesn't need permission, someone who doesn't wait for instructions, someone who doesn't fold under pressure, because he already passed through it. He called this person the overman, not a superhero, but a higher individual, one who rises above the average by shaping their own will, and to do that they must confront their deepest instincts, not erase them, but reorganize them. Desire becomes power when it's refined, not raw energy, but guided force. The world rewards those who can focus, who can delay, adjust, redirect. Most people never learn how, because they never try. Nietzsche's answer wasn't to give up pleasure, it was to take control of it, to stop being used by it. The goal wasn't to feel less, it was to act more. That's how desire becomes strength, not by running from it, by leading it. The world today is flooded with instant access to pleasure. Pornography is everywhere, always a click away. It offers endless novelty, new images, new experiences, all designed to grab attention and keep it locked. It's no accident. Tech companies study the brain's wiring and use it to maximize engagement. They exploit deep instincts, those primal urges wired into humans for survival, and turn them into profit. This isn't just about entertainment, it has become a trap. The constant availability creates a cycle. The brain craves more stimulation, more excitement, and soon simple pleasures lose their effect. What once felt satisfying now feels dull, so the search intensifies. People chase a moving target that never stops. This endless pursuit wears down mental clarity. Focus slips, motivation fades. What could have been hours of productivity becomes minutes wasted. The mind fogs over with distraction, a haze that is hard to shake. The brain's reward system, meant to encourage growth and survival, gets hijacked into seeking short bursts of pleasure. Hookup culture too reflects this pattern. Quick encounters replace deeper connection. Casualness replaces commitment. Desire becomes a transaction. It's easier, faster, but it also leaves a void. The brain registers the interaction but misses the meaning. This constant churn builds a restless cycle that pulls people away from long-term goals, from building something meaningful. In this environment, many struggle with identity. The idea of discipline feels foreign. Ambition weakens. There's no clear direction when every distraction fights for attention. The result is a crisis of focus and purpose, especially for young men. Masculinity, often linked with control and responsibility, is challenged. Without discipline, energy dissipates. Without direction, potential remains unrealized. But the cost isn't just individual. It affects entire generations. The slow erosion of attention spans, the decline of deep thinking, the loss of patience, These ripple through society. A distracted generation struggles to lead, to innovate, to build. The capacity to focus on challenging tasks diminishes. The ability to delay gratification, to choose effort over ease, weakens. What looks like freedom, access to anything, anytime, can feel more like a prison built on the relentless pull of now. The urge to click, to swipe, to consume, this digital world built for instant pleasure, makes it difficult to step back and regain control. Reclaiming focus means understanding this trap, seeing how desire is used against you, recognizing that the endless chase of pleasure doesn't bring satisfaction but distraction. The path out isn't to avoid pleasure, but to take back control, to choose where attention goes, to build habits that support long-term goals, not momentary relief. In a world designed to pull you in every direction, mastery over desire becomes a quiet revolution. It's the difference between being led by impulses and leading yourself, between living distracted and living deliberate. Throughout history, three distinct paths emerged to handle desire, each with its own discipline and purpose. The first is the path of the monk. Monks, across cultures, practiced restraint to transform desire into something beyond the physical. Taoist monks sought harmony by flowing with nature and minimizing distraction. Buddhist monks aimed to extinguish craving altogether, believing that liberation from desire meant freedom from suffering. Christian ascetics retreated from worldly pleasures to focus on spiritual truth, seeing discipline as a way to purify the soul. In these traditions, desire was not merely denied, it was redirected. The energy behind desire became fuel for spiritual growth. The monk's discipline was about inner stillness, reducing impulses to quiet the mind and open a space for understanding beyond the senses. They traded momentary satisfaction for lasting insight. Their power was calm and steady, a strength born from surrendering the chase. The second path is the way of the warrior. Warriors like the samurai in Japan or the Spartans in ancient Greece trained their bodies and minds to endure hardship and remain ready for battle. Their discipline was practical and immediate. They held back desire not out of denial, but out of necessity. Indulgence meant weakness. Weakness meant defeat. The warrior mastered his impulses to stay alert, focused, and strong. Sexual restraint was part of this training. It preserved energy, sharpened attention, and kept the mind clear in moments that demanded total control. For the warrior, discipline was survival. It was a means to an end, the ability to face danger and emerge victorious. The power here was physical and mental readiness, a sharp edge honed through restraint and repetition. The third path is the philosophers. Philosophers took a different approach. They sought to understand desire through reason. Desire was not something to simply block or obey, but to study and master. By examining its nature, its causes and effects, the philosopher aimed to choose when and how to act on desire rather than being swept away. This path demanded mental discipline, a clarity to see desire as it really is, not as an uncontrollable force. Philosophers cultivated detachment by recognizing the temporary nature of satisfaction and the costs of indulgence. Their power came from knowledge and choice, the ability to stand apart from impulse and decide on a higher course. Each path required discipline, but offered different forms of power. The monk's power was spiritual peace and insight. The warrior's power was physical strength and control. The philosopher's power was mental clarity and freedom. Choosing one path meant committing to its demands. All required sacrifices. None promised comfort. But all offered a way to transform desire from a source of chaos into a source of strength. The paths are not mutually exclusive. Elements of each can be found in many lives, but the essential lesson is the same. Mastery over desire is a form of power, not just power over others, but power over yourself. The ability to direct energy toward your goals rather than letting it scatter in every direction. In a world full of distractions and quick fixes, these ancient models still hold value. Whether through quiet meditation, disciplined training, or clear thinking, discipline shapes who we become. And by choosing how to engage with desire, we choose what kind of power to cultivate. Sexual energy is powerful. It's raw, intense, and deeply wired into the body. But this energy doesn't have to control you. Instead, it can be turned into something useful, something that fuels your projects, your goals, and your purpose. This process is called transmutation. It means changing one form of energy into another. Rather than letting desire pull you toward distractions or quick pleasure, you redirect it. You channel that energy into action, into creation. Physical practices help with this redirection. Exercise uses the body's strength to burn off excess energy. Martial arts teach discipline and control, transforming aggression and desire into focused movement. Cold showers shock the system, breaking patterns of comfort and forcing the mind to sharpen. These habits build resilience and teach the body to hold tension without release, converting sexual energy into endurance. On the mental level, meditation calms the mind and brings awareness to impulses instead of reacting to them. Journaling lets you track your thoughts and patterns, making desire something you observe rather than blindly follow. Aligning your daily actions with a clear purpose keeps the mind anchored, so energy flows toward long-term goals instead of immediate rewards. Creatively, sexual energy can become fuel for building, writing, painting, or any form of expression. Instead of seeing desire as something shameful or dangerous, it becomes a wildfire. A fire that can either burn everything down or light a path forward. If uncontrolled, this fire consumes you. It distracts and drains. But when directed, it becomes divine. It burns steadily, giving warmth and light. It powers transformation and growth. The key is learning to handle this fire, to recognize when it's rising, to choose where it goes, and to avoid wasting it on fleeting pleasures. This skill requires practice, patience, and self-awareness. Using sexual energy as power doesn't mean suppressing it or ignoring it. It means understanding it, respecting it, and putting it to work for what matters most. It's a rebirth, taking something primal and turning it into a tool for success. By mastering this energy, you build focus, you sharpen your mind, you deepen your commitment, and you become someone who doesn't just react to urges, but someone who directs them toward meaning. The most powerful strength isn't found in what you can achieve or the skills you develop. It's in what you can resist, the ability to say no, to hold back, to deny immediate urges in favor of long-term gains. This is the hidden superpower few understand or cultivate. Most people never reach this level of mastery. They fall prey to impulse, distraction, and temptation. They trade focus for momentary pleasure, clarity for noise, progress for comfort. The cost is high. A scattered mind, lost potential, and a life that slips by without direction. But those who do learn restraint gain something few possess. They become unstoppable. Their energy, once scattered, sharpens like a blade. Their mind, once clouded, clears like a still lake. This control creates space for real growth and achievement. It turns desire from a chain into a tool. This power isn't flashy or loud. It's quiet and steady, rooted deep in discipline. It shapes a person's life from the inside out. Control yourself or be controlled by something else. This isn't just advice. It's a truth echoed by philosophers, warriors, and sages through time. Few grasp this. Even fewer live it. But for those who do, it changes everything. Thank you for following through to the end. Kindly like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel for more educational content. Thank you.